At 80 years old, you start noticing who's missing, not in loud ways, in quiet ones. An empty chair at church that used to be filled every Sunday. A birthday that passes without a phone call you once expected. A story only you remember now because the other man who lived it is gone. And one morning you look around the room and realize something changed. The room didn't get bigger, it just got quieter. If reflections like this steady you, strengthen you, or make you pause long enough to think about your own life, I'd appreciate you liking, subscribing, and turning on the notification bell. I read the comments myself. I really do. Some of them sit with me long after I've finished reading, and I'm grateful for every person who shares a piece of their story here. My name is Richard Lawson. Most folks call me Rick. I'm 80 years old. I've been married to Mary for 58 years. We raised Tom and Lisa in Cedar Falls, Iowa. I gave 35 years to the same manufacturing plant, same clock, same whistle, same men on the line beside me. I've lived what most would call a steady life, and I thank the Lord for it. But at 80, you begin to see time differently. You stop measuring it in decades. You start measuring it in faces. When you're young, life feels crowded. Your calendar fills itself. Cookouts on Saturdays, church potlucks, shift changes at the plant, kids running in and out of the house, neighbors stopping by without calling first. You assume that fullness is permanent. You assume the same men will always be standing beside you. You assume your father will always be a phone call away. You assume your mother's voice will always be in the kitchen. But time doesn't knock on the door when it decides to change things. It just begins subtracting. I remember the first funeral that felt different, not because of who passed, but because of who was standing in the front row. We looked older, thinner, quieter. And when I scanned the room, I realized we were no longer the young men attending funerals. We were becoming the old ones. That realization doesn't hit like a punch. It settles, like cold air slowly filling your lungs. Over the years, I've stood beside caskets, holding the hands of widows who once danced in our kitchens. I've watched sons carry the same look in their eyes I once carried at 18 and a half. I've shaken hands in receiving lines where fewer and fewer familiar faces stood waiting. But here's the part nobody prepares you for. It's not the service. It's the weeks after. It's when something funny happens and your first instinct is to call someone. And then you remember. You can't. It's driving past a house and realizing the porch light hasn't been on in months. It's Thanksgiving when someone quietly removes a place setting and pretends not to notice. Empty chairs preach powerful sermons. They remind you that presence is a gift, not a guarantee. There are mornings when I sit at the kitchen table before Mary wakes up. The house is still. The clock ticks louder than it used to. And sometimes I just look around. I can still picture my father sitting across from me at that same table. He had a way of folding his hands before speaking. He didn't waste words. When he gave advice, it was short, direct, solid. I didn't always listen the way I should have. That's one regret I carry. Not big dramatic rebellion, just impatience. Thinking I knew enough. Thinking there would always be time to ask more questions. The last real conversation we had, I was distracted. Work was heavy. Kids were young. I was thinking about responsibilities. He was thinking about legacy. I didn't realize that until after he was gone. My mother, She hummed when she cooked. I can still hear it if I close my eyes. She never made a big speech about love. She showed it in meals, in folded laundry, in quiet consistency. One day that humming stopped. No announcement, just silence. My uncle, the one who taught me to fish, he used to tell me, "Rick, pay attention to the water. It tells you more than you think." Back then, I thought he was talking about fish. At 80, I realized he was talking about life. Pay attention, because currents change quietly. 3 of the men who enlisted with Buck and me at 18 and a half are gone. One of them, Danny, used to laugh too loud at his own jokes. We teased him for it. At his funeral, that laugh was the thing I missed most. Another friend from the plant, Sam, he worked beside me for 22 years. We complained about management together. We celebrated when our kids graduated. The last time I saw him, we said, "Let's grab coffee sometime." We never did. That's the aha moment age gives you. You think you're postponing small things. You're not. You're gambling with time. There are afternoons when the weight of memory sits heavy on me, when I realize I am now one of the last living witnesses to certain moments. That can make a man feel alone. But here's what changed everything for me. One day I was sitting in church and I looked around. So many familiar faces were gone. And for a brief second, I felt that quiet ache. Then it hit me. I'm still here. And that means I still have responsibility. Not to mourn what's missing endlessly, but to honor it by how I live. That was my turning point. Grief can either shrink you or sharpen you. I chose sharpen. There's a strange responsibility that comes with aging. You become the keeper of stories. You're the last one who remembers how your father's voice sounded when he was proud. The last one who remembers your mother's humming. The last one who remembers the exact joke your friend told on a break in 1978. That doesn't feel tragic to me anymore. It feels sacred. Because as long as I carry those memories, something of them continues. And then something else shifts. You stop looking backward quite as much. You start looking carefully at who is still here. Mary, 58 years beside that woman. I used to rush through breakfasts because I was thinking about work. Now I sit. I listen. I watch the way she still straightens the salt and pepper shakers like it matters. Because it does. Buck still pulls into my driveway most mornings at 5:30. 2 old men walking trails like we've done for years. Our pace is slower now, but our gratitude is bigger. We don't say it out loud, but we both know. Every morning we see each other is not owed to us. When you understand subtraction, you treat presence differently. You listen longer. You interrupt less. You say, "I appreciate you," without feeling awkward. You forgive quicker because grudges feel ridiculous at 80. My faith has anchored all of this. Without it, I think the quiet would feel heavier. There's a certainty the Lord gives you at this stage of life, not denial, not pretending loss doesn't hurt. Certainty, a steady knowing that life is temporary but meaningful, that the chairs may empty here, but this isn't the end of the story. Scripture says, "Teach us to number our days." At 30, that sounded poetic. At 80, it sounds urgent. Number your days. Not to panic, but to prioritize. Here's what I've learned that might save you regret. Don't postpone small connections. Don't assume there will be a better moment. Don't wait to ask your father that question. Don't wait to sit beside your mother while she hums. Don't say, "someday." because someday becomes silence faster than you think. I used to measure success by hours worked. Now I measure it by moments noticed. Aging hasn't made me fragile. It has made me focused. Yes, there are afternoons when memory hits harder than expected. Yes, there are moments when I miss those men deeply. But I don't live in fear, because I know where my strength comes from. God has carried me through war, through raising children, through financial strain, through funerals, through doubt. He has never failed me. So when I notice who's missing, I don't spiral. I bow my head. I give thanks for the time I had with them. And I ask for the wisdom to use well the time I still have. That prayer steadies a man. If you're younger than me and listening carefully, the room feels full right now. It feels like there will always be another summer, another birthday, another chance to say what you meant to say. But time is quietly subtracting. Call your parents. Sit longer at the table. Visit the friend you've been meaning to see. Don't leave every conversation assuming it will repeat. Because one day you will look around and realize you are holding more memories than people. And when that day comes, I hope your memories are rich. I hope you can say you showed up. I hope you can say you listened when it mattered. Tomorrow morning, I'll wake up at 5 a.m. Mary will be still asleep. Buck might pull into the driveway. The sun will rise over Cedar Falls like it always has, and I won't assume any of it. I will receive it. At 80, you start noticing who's missing, but you also start noticing what remains, and you realize something powerful. You can't stop subtraction, but you can control attention. As long as I'm breathing, I have someone to love, and that is more than enough. If this reflection strengthened you, consider subscribing. I'll keep sharing what many of us only learn slowly, year by year, face by face. At 80, you start noticing who's missing. But what you do with the ones who remain, that's the legacy.